Hi, Paul Nashawati coming to you live from the show floor at KubeCon EU 2026. I'm here with Tobie from SurrealDB. Tobie, how you doing?
Hey, nice to meet you. Yeah, very good, thank you.
This is great. So tell us a little bit about SurrealDB and a little bit about what's going on at the show.
Okay, cool. So SurrealDB is a multimodel database that brings together vector search, full text search, document and relational, and then graph and time series. Effectively, the premise of it is, how do we improve the relevance of the data that gets pushed into the context of an LLM? And therefore, how can we improve the accuracy or the confidence in the result that comes out? So there are lots of different things we do around that, but that's the latest.
Yeah, I mean, we had a briefing earlier this week. That was great. You kind of give me an update on what's happening with it. But what are you hearing from customers coming to the booth?
I think, look, the big change this year is about, we're moving from large-scale training, and then more and more organizations are now saying, we're moving towards inference, we want to do more, we want to be building more agents, we want to be building more autonomous decision-making systems and AI applications. How do we do that and be confident in the result? You hear it again and again and again, I use this, but I'm not confident in the output, I don't know if I trust it, or it's hallucinating. We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about an organization who's dealing with tens, hundreds of terabytes, or even a petabyte, and more of data, how do you ensure that the data you're acting on is as relevant as it can be? You can't just do that with similarity search or word search, like with full text search. You have to combine these things together. So it's definitely resonating for us. I think people are experiencing this, and the larger the data set gets, you're experiencing more.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, one of the things that I've been hearing a lot about during this event is compliance, governance, regulations, and also data sovereignty. How does that play into your?
I mean, look, data sovereignty. We work with governments, we work with defence organisations as well. Data sovereignty is big at the moment, of course, and also the ability to run this wherever you want to run it. So, I mean, for us, that's a simple answer, because we can run anywhere. We can run on-prem, we can run in the cloud, we can run on a device. So we have organisations who deploy us air-gapped in the field on edge devices. So it's very flexible how you can deploy us, but it is definitely, I think, as we're talking about data, and as we're talking about organizations who want to create a brain, let's say, organizational wide data structure that agents can read from and write back to. You can't just let, in the same way that you can't let every employee in an organization access all data, you can't let agents access all data.
Right.
So these safeguards, these permissions, we're at the very beginning of that as an industry, definitely, but that has to be built in to the fundamental part of the data stack, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot. The other fact is there's a lot of complexity around this, because there's a lot of experimentation and innovation going on. Lots of different MTP servers, lots of different agents. At some point, this needs to be harmonized and brought together. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, MTP is that way, in a way. Like, obviously everyone had their own APIs before, right? Yes, there were conventions on how you should design an API, but every API was different. MTP is that. MTP is bringing that together. What I do think is how people are working with, let's call it memory or context. How people are working with memory, it definitely needs to be standardized. We need to have a good understanding of how it works, and we're moving towards that, right? By operating memory, or let's call it unstructured knowledge, let's say, as something that represents more a human brain. As in terms of, we have nodes, we have relationships, we have connections, we have weight, we have the temporal understanding, of how state changes over time. This is definitely where it's moving to. But I think, the protocols that people use to talk to these systems, I'm not sure which one will win. MCP is obviously doing very well at the moment.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that there's it's evolving, it's changing. We just had this conversation with the open source community and talking about how there's not too long ago, A2A was donated by Google to the Linux Foundation.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you're doing here. As a lot on your board here is you have multimodal, you have scalability. What does this mean to the market? Like, you bring in different data sources. You have that sovereignty piece. We talked about that. What does it mean to, like? Is it hard to ingest the data? Is it easy? Like, how do you move around?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, look, first of all, we are not built on top of other platforms. We don't take a graph database and a vector database and then put an API on top. We have built that engine from the bottom up, and that enables us to operate in the ways that we can be operated. So for instance, just to start with, at the very bottom of our stack, we've separated out the storage from the compute. So the data storage is just a very, very large key value store that can be distributed horizontally. It can be run on object storage as well, so you can scale out beyond the data set size that you want to store. And then the compute layer, the model and all these models we see here sit on top. In SurrealDB, you don't have to think up front. You know, when people say, oh, it's a multimodal database, they often have to think, oh, I want a key value in this case, or I want graph in this case. We are a database that enables you to bring all of those models into a single query. So your graph nodes can also be part of the time series data. Your time series data can relate to other nodes through graph. Everything at the end of the day is stored as a document, so it's very similar to how something like MongoDB would store data with arbitrary JSON-like embedded fields and embedded arrays, but it's the ability to connect and relate and then use indexes like vector search, full text search, additional indexes as well on top of that. So by bringing these things together, you can say, right, I want to do hybrid rank with vector and full text search. I want to improve that through relevance with graph, re-ranking, let's say. I then want to filter down on temporal aspects, so the temporal validity of facts as they change over time. And then, maybe I want to then expand out and get more relevant context based on those searches for the LLM. So you could do all of that in a single, 1 or 2 queries on a single system, fully ACID, one transaction, and you get the result back that you need.
Well, it sounds incredibly interesting. I mean, it sounds incredibly useful for the audience and how they want to get there. What are the top 3 things you want to leave for the audience?
I mean, the industry is changing rapidly as we know. I think memory is one of the big, will be one of the big defining things of this year. Context, knowledge graphs, memory, and how we access that data. I would say, look, go and try us out. It's free to try. SurrealDB.com. We're on GitHub as well, and start trying us in your projects.
Very cool. Tobie, thank you for your time today, and thanks for your insights. I think you're right on. It's pretty good, pretty interesting.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Nash, why don't you come to you live from the show for KubeCon EU 2026.